Hello and happy Tuesday. How is everybody tonight? Welcome to Training Tuesday. We are back for another week of training, and as I mentioned last week, February is focused on communication. Because why not? Because if we're going to be in the month of love and relationships and all that good stuff, whether it's Valentine's Day tomorrow or Galentine's Day or just another Wednesday, improving on and fine-tuning our communication skills is never really a bad thing, is it? So that's what we're going to focus on this month. And tonight, I want to talk about things we can do where you're in situations at work where people are behaving badly, and give you a few tools for how you can respond. We're going to go over 3 particular situations tonight. And I was thinking about this because there's clearly more than 3. Like, there are all kinds of ways people behave badly at work. And when they do, I think oftentimes we have very similar reactions, right? We either get really super defensive and we start trying to defend ourselves and rehash our position and explain what we're doing, why we're doing, how we're doing it. And sometimes that turns into a little bit of word vomit, which we talked about last week. Or we freeze, right? We stop and we go, wait a minute. Did they really say that? Did they really mean that? How am I supposed to respond? Like, what's the thing? What's going on here? And are they really being that rude? Right? So these are ways that often we respond when we're stuck in a situation where somebody is being unpleasant. So, and hey, I see Joyce is here and Jackie is here. Welcome. And for those of you who are joining us, give Jackie a big round of applause. She got a big promotion that I think is official, right? It's official and announced today. I'm announcing it here, so there you go. So yay to Jackie for making a big move in her career. Hey, Rochelle, it's good to see you. I'm glad you made it. All right, so tonight it's Clapback class. It's time to work on how do we respond to people behaving badly at work. And I'm going to walk through 3 different situations. And I was thinking about, like, why are people rude? I mean, why are they rude anytime, but especially at work, when all we're trying to do at work, do our job, do a good job, maybe have a little bit of a good time at it, and get a paycheck, right? Like, we're trying to do some basic things, and we're all trying to do it. We're all trying to do the same thing. So why do some people show up as rude or mean at work? So if you have reasons for why you think some of your coworkers are less than pleasant at work, I'd love to hear that in the chat. I was thinking of a few people that I work with, and I thought, okay, I know for sure that one of them is, well, probably more than one, but one of them that stands out is very power hungry. They're very, very conscious of status, and they very much want to get ahead, and they don't care. They don't care who they step on. They don't care who they throw under the bus. They are not concerned with you and your feelings. They just want to get ahead. So they're constantly putting themselves out there and showing and trying to prove everybody else wrong. So I look at them as power hungry. Yes, Julie. First of all, hey, it's good to see you. And second, jealousy. There is sometimes just basic jealousy and envy happening in the workplace. You've got a coworker, somebody who wants your job, wants a project you're working on, thinks they could do it better than you, and they're just eaten up with jealousy, and they may have a little bit of an ego that also says, I could do that better. I could do that better than them. So there's that. In opposition of the power hungry, there are the people that I call power fearful. Power fearful people are, they are afraid of getting recognized for the negative. They're afraid of getting in trouble. They're afraid of doing something wrong. They're afraid that if they get noticed too much, they might get laid off or fired or something. And so their mentality is better you than me. So they're throwing you under the bus, not because they have any negative feeling towards you, but they're throwing you under the bus because it's a defensive move. I don't want to be at risk, so I'm putting everybody else in front of me at risk so that they never get to me. There are actually people who get promoted using this strategy. Like, there's some really bad actors out there who are so busy throwing everybody else under the bus that they are effective at deflecting attention on others so that they never have to have accountability or blame. Truly oblivious, absolutely. The obliviously egotistical, which sometimes are the power hungry and sometimes are just the ego of, yes, but it should be me. It should be me. There's also the victim, right? There are people with the victim mentality of, how come you and not me? And they might fall a little bit in the envy and jealousy camp, but they also just might fall in the camp of nothing good ever happens to me, so I'm going to bring everybody down with me. I'm just going to criticize everybody. This is the Debbie Downer of the group, but she's the victim, and she tries to put everybody in that same victimizing situation. So there are a lot more profiles about office, people we work with in the office and the politics and all of that. And we did a training a couple months ago. Actually, we did a series of trainings kind of in depth around office politics and office politic personalities. So I'm not going to go into all of that tonight. If you are interested in revisiting that, or if you didn't catch it when we ran it a couple months ago, the series of office politics and the different players that you come up against and how to deal with them, drop the word politics in the comments and I will make sure to connect you with that training series, because that's all about the people. Tonight, we don't care about them. Tonight is not about them. At the end of the day, they are mean. It doesn't matter why they're mean. What we want to focus on tonight is you and how you should respond. So I mentioned earlier, right? What happens when we get stuck in the situation where people are mean to us is we often resist maybe standing up for ourselves or stepping into power because we're worried about looking petty. We're worried about looking mean just like them. And we should be, right? We get frozen. We get stuck. Like, I can't believe they said that and I don't know how to respond. And we might be a little bit in shock. Sometimes we're a little bit in shock when people are mean to us and we weren't expecting it in particular. Or we get defensive and we start defending and then we just keep going, and we know that being on the defense never sounds good. So tonight we're going to talk about how do you stay in your power? How do you respond but keep it classy? Be assertive without being rude. And establish that you are the one in control. You are the one in power in that moment. So I'm going to talk tonight about 3 pretty common situations that they're just 3 common situations that mean people throw at you at work. We're going to phrase it that way. So the first one is the most direct one. It's the direct insulter, right? Who's a person at work, or is there a person you have at work who just insults you, like directly to your face, in front of people or not in front of people? But they have no problem throwing things out there like, man, you are slow, right? Or I worked once with a woman, and I was always horrified by this, but I heard her say it more than once. We were in team meetings, and she would say to a member of her team, "What, are you stupid? Like, why did you do that? Are you stupid?" So there are people who are directly antagonistic and insulting like that. And I'm curious, if any of you work with someone like that, say hey. Just say hey. You don't have to say who it is. You don't have to say what mean thing they said. Here's the thing when you're dealing with somebody who is directly insulting like that. You can ignore it. That is an option. Ignoring it is an option. You can ignore the direct insult because everyone else in the room knows they're being rude. It's not a secret. It's not a surprise. There's nothing to expose there but somebody who's making it obvious that they're behaving badly. So you don't choose to address this to teach them a lesson or put them in their place. People who are that blatantly rude, especially as adults, and have gotten away with it for that long, they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. So it's not about putting them in their place. It is about you feeling like you have control and you have power. So if you are comfortable that everybody in the room knows they're a jerk, so I'm just going to let it go, there's no point wasting energy addressing it if it's really not going to bother you. If this is somebody who's constantly mean and rude and everybody knows they're a jerk, let it go. Don't spend the energy. If it's going to bother you, if it is going to bother you, if you're going to be stuck in your head ruminating that you wish you had said something, you wish you had done something, how dare that person, then you are responding not for them, but for you. So I just want to be clear on that. We are responding for our own sense of peace and power. We don't care about theirs, okay? So if you're going to respond to somebody who's insulting you, first thing you do is you say it back to them. You say it back to them. And depending on the situation, there's two ways to say it back. One is if this is somebody that you don't know very well or you never met before. I have been in meetings with people and I've never met them before, and it's amazing the rude garbage that will come out of their mouth. They feel safe because they don't know me. And they think somehow we're in a situation where they have the upper hand. So if it's somebody I don't know well, the response is, yeah, what's your name? Or just, yeah, it's Kevin, right? Keith, it's Keith. Okay, Keith, so what you're saying is that I'm stupid. You literally repeat it back to them. You're basically checking in like, did you hear what you said? They don't expect to be called out. They do expect you to ignore it, and then they feel like they got their dig in and they had their say. Whatever. They go off in their mean little world. If you're calling them out on it, though, you're making it very clear to everyone in the room that you heard them, and you're just checking in. Hey, you. So you're saying that I'm stupid, or you're saying that I'm slow, or you're saying that I screwed it up. Whatever it is that they're being insulting about. You call them on it. Most of the time, that right there, just that phrase right there, oh, so, excuse me, you're saying that I'm stupid. Just flat. You're not being defensive. You're not being angry. You are literally clarifying that you heard them right. You're clarifying, I heard this right. You were saying that I'm stupid. Just calling them out forces them to acknowledge they said something rude. And really, when you say something like that, you ought to have information to back it up. 90% of the time, they're going to backpedal. Well, no, it's not what I meant, or I shouldn't have said that, as it came out wrong, right? They're going to backpedal. And you can let it go. You can absolutely let it go. You can, if it's someone that you know well, you can just agree with it. You can just agree with it. So Kevin makes some underhanded comment that I'm stupid, and my response, and I've worked with Kevin for a while, so it's not, I don't need to check it. Are you Keith or are you Kevin? What was your name again? So Kevin says, what, are you stupid? And my second option would be, well, yeah, Kevin, I might be stupid. But are you okay? I'm flipping the conversation. One, I'm acknowledging, yeah, that's what he said, and yeah, fine, call me stupid. Like, I'm not going to take that personally, and I'm checking in. Are you okay? Because for somebody to say something that mean and rude, that unkind, I have to think there must be something wrong, because that's not normal behavior. It's not normal. So it's a very sweet way to call them on it. Yeah, Kevin, I might be slow. Yeah, you're probably right. I probably am slow. But are you okay? And sometimes you'll get the blustering again. Well, I don't know what you mean, or I'm fine, blah, blah. Let them bluster and let it go. You let them bluster around and you let it go. Because what you just did was call them out on, I recognize that you're being a jerk right now. And I'm just checking in, because normal people don't do that. And you let them respond however they want to respond. And here's the deal. You don't have to engage. Not only you don't have to, you should not engage any further with that negative behavior at that point. You've made your point. Now, if they want to go down the road of insisting that I'm stupid and I did all these things wrong, I'm just going to sit there and nod and go, you could be right. but I'm focused on fixing this problem right now, not on trying to figure out just how stupid I am. So can we focus on this right now? So you want to turn the table, right? So it's, well, yeah, I could be stupid. Are you doing okay? So that's with people with direct insults. You ignore it, you repeat it back to them, and you ask them, are you okay? Are you doing all right? You're engaging in not normal behavior. So what's up with that? Now, before I move on, do any of you guys deal with direct insults? With people who give you direct insults at work? And do you have other ways that you deal with that? So if you have other tips to deal with somebody who kind of gets in your face and says, man, you are slow, and they're not being nice about it, share in the comments how you handle that conversation. Because the next one we're going to get to is the more passive aggressive, the kind of indirect insulters. So the indirect ones, they're hiding behind what they think is a little bit more political finesse, and it's usually not. And they're kind of, there are a few different ways passive aggressive insults can come out, right? One of them is the backhanded compliment. Oh, wow, you finally got that project done. I'm surprised. What do you mean you're surprised? That's not a, like, there's a difference between a, oh, you finally got that project done. Thank God, it was on your plate for so long. You must be exhausted. I know you hated that. Like, that's commiserating. You finally got it done. But the other is, you finally got that done. Wow, I never thought you were going to finish that. Right? And they don't mean it in a nice way. And you know the difference. You can read the energy and you know the difference. So that's the backhanded compliment. On the surface, oh, you got it done, sounds like they're cheering you on, but what they're actually saying is, really? So that's one kind of passive aggressive way. Another passive aggressive comment, and I hear this one a lot in the workplace, is somebody else saying, you're being a little too sensitive. And what they're saying is, you're the problem here, not the rest of us. You and your sensitivity, you and your pickiness, you're being too picky, you're being too anything, right? That underhanded accusation, you're being too anything. You are the problem. And the third version was is the more dismissive one. It's like we're all living with our teenagers again, right? There's a conversation going on at work and you say something and someone else goes, yeah, okay, whatever. Our kids do that to us and we get irritated with them when they do it, right? Okay, whatever. Michelle, it's passive. I'll hear about it from someone else, or yep, or other people will ask about it and ask if you're okay. Yeah, that's also, if it's passive and it's coming around from someone else too, like it's somebody's checking on you because they heard a thing. That's a gossip political player, like spreading the rumors and spreading the vibes. And honestly, Rochelle, the biggest answer to that is basically, I'm fine. I don't know what you're talking about. The key with both the direct insult, the key with a lot of these is the lack of engagement. It's just like dealing with bullies. When you don't engage, when you don't fall into being defensive, when you don't fall into being angry, they have nothing more to latch onto and to operate against. But it's frustrating because when we're at work, we feel like my reputation's at stake, my job may be at stake, how my coworkers think of me is at stake, right? Which fires us up to want to defend ourselves, to want to say something, to want to be in their face again, go back at them. And what we have to remember is that our other coworkers and our bosses whose opinions we value, they recognize this behavior. Bad behavior doesn't go unnoticed. It does go unchecked. I've worked at an awful lot of organizations that do not hold bad behavior accountable, which is unfortunate. But it's not unnoticed. It's just unchecked. So when you're dealing with the passive-aggressive type, and Rochelle, I'd be curious, how do you respond when this situation that you've outlined, when this happens to you? What's the tack that you choose to take when you're starting to hear back chatter from someone else? For the backhanded compliment, when it's the whole, wow, That took you forever. You finally got that done. The sweetest thing to say is, did you mean that how that sounds? Most of the time, if you just ask somebody, did you really mean that the way that sounds? Most of the time they start to backpedal. Oh no, I didn't mean that. Or, oh wait, that's not what I meant at all. They just start, I was just saying that. And you can leave them wallowing, right? You can leave them just flinging their mud around in their backpedaling and just say, oh, okay, I was just checking. Like, they can make all the excuses in the world for why they said the rude thing. And you can basically say, yeah, I was just checking. But you can leave it there. You've done your bit. You've called them out to say, I hear you, and that wasn't nice. And I don't need to respond, and I don't need to defend myself. You were just being not nice. So with a backhanded compliment, just flip it right back at them. Did you mean that the way that sounded? And see what they say. And if they say yes, it's like, are you okay? Because now they're just being they went from passive aggressive to directly insulting. Yes, you were super slow. You're right. I was super slow. Are you okay? Like, why are we berating me right now? And not their business. With the second passive aggressive one, where they're giving you the whole, you're too sensitive. You're too talkative. You're too whatever. There is one great phrase. And this is one phrase that you can literally put on repeat for this and for other situations, but for this situation, and never have to say anything else, which is, wow, Natalie, you are being way too sensitive about this. Okay, but I don't see it that way. Okay, but that's not how I see it. What I love about this phrase is that you aren't saying to the other person, you're wrong. And you're not putting out the defensive, I am not. What you're saying is, I have a different point of view, and it's equally valid. I have a different point of view, and I'm staying here with my point of view. Well, you really are being just too sensitive. I don't see it that way. That's all you have to say. No, really, Natalie, you need to reconsider this. No, I don't see it that way. So we either need to have a different discussion, right? We either need to flip this discussion to account for my point of view, or we need to move on to something else altogether. But I'm not going to go, yeah, I probably am. Because I feel strongly about that, right? I am not being too sensitive. I am not being too whatever. I am not being too talkative. I have a different point of view. So for the passive aggressive, you're the problem. Your response is, I don't see it that way. Now, for the third one, where you're dealing with kind of your crappy teenager again, right? The whole, okay, whatever. I would deal with this one almost similarly to how you deal with the first one, with the backhanded compliment. So I might not say to, okay, whatever. I might not say to them, did you mean that the way that sounded? What I might do is more directly say, not sure what you meant by that, but I'm not going there. I'm not sure what you're trying to do right now, but I'm not going there. And then you proceed with the conversation, the dialogue, with whatever it is, as an adult. As an adult. So you can, with the backhanded compliment, when you do the whole, did you mean that as that sounds? Did you mean that as that sounds? And however they're blundering, right? If they're wallowing in it, especially if they're wallowing in it with the whole, well, you were actually really kind of slow. And, you could have done this better, right? If they start getting into that mode, you can just say, you know what? I'm not sure what you're doing right now, but I'm not going there. That's not what this conversation is about. And you move on. The key is you say your piece and you move on. This is how we establish a boundary. We say our piece. We don't defend it. We don't explain it. We don't have to. We simply say, this behavior you're engaging in is not acceptable. So I don't know what you're doing, but I'm not going to go there. I'm going to go over here and we're going to talk about this. So you're redirecting. It's like you do with kids and puppies. You redirect. You redirect them. So when you're dealing with the passive aggressives, that's how you respond. Did you mean how that sounds? I don't know what you're doing here, but I'm not going there. And I don't see it that way. You're establishing your sense of power and control. You're not giving it up, and you're setting a boundary. So Rochelle, I want to see what you wrote. You said, I admit it if I miss something. Something knowing. I already corrected the action. Yep. Yeah, right. So if somebody's trying to call you out for something that was a mistake in the past, such a waste of energy, but I totally get it. And say, yep, that was a day. Good for you. And that's a beautiful response, Rochelle, because what I love about your energy, and you've always had this energy since we've been connected, is the positivity. It's the, I'm not going to allow you to rattle my cage. And that is how we respond in all this, right? You go wallow in being mean. You go throw your dirt on other people, throw your dirt on yourself, and, make yourself feel better or bigger about it. But I am not going to let your bad juju affect me and what I got to get done. And your responses are spot on with that. I love that. All right. The third case I wanted to bring up, because this is one that probably happens the most, is what do you do when someone keeps interrupting you? Do any of you have chronic interrupters at your work? People who just, anytime you're in a meeting, anytime you're in a conversation, they are just like, yes, yes, and they want to jump in and they want to interrupt, or they want to redirect the conversation. And sometimes they're excited and they want to share, and that's really all it is. And so it's rude, but it's not meant to be mean. It's just rude. Sometimes it's, wait, I need the attention back on me, and it is rude. Sometimes it's time to squash down your perspective or your point of view. Climbing the corporate ladder, right? They're kind of power hungry. So when you have people who are interrupting you, here's what you want to do. Okay? You don't, and Julie, yes, very unavoidable. It is, right? Because you can't just slap your hand over the other person's mouth and say, shh. Which I might have done on an occasion or two with my children. Shh. All right? It's actually not that effective. So when you're in a meeting, in a conversation, one-on-one, doesn't matter, and somebody is jumping in and they're trying to talk over you, they're trying to insert themselves in what you're trying to explain or trying to share. First, do not compete. Do not try to overshout them. Don't talk louder, don't talk faster, because that's what we do. And I talked about this a little bit last week in the word vomit piece, right? Especially when we get nervous or we feel stressed or put on, we start talking louder and faster and blah, 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 right? And we're trying to compete with them. You want to keep your voice level and steady, because what happens? They're already raising their voice to be heard over you. If you start raising your pitch and you two are battling for focus and control and getting louder and louder, you actually look like you're losing control. You might not be getting mad, but just by getting louder and louder and pushing at each other that way, you look like you're losing your ground. So do not compete with them. Do not try to overshout them. Do not try to bluster your way through. Instead, what you're going to do, you are going to slow down. You're going to keep your same pitch. You're having a conversation. Now Kevin jumps in and he's interrupting you, and you are going to slow down your words. You're going to speak slower, but you're not going to stop. You're going to keep going with what it is you had to say, and you're going to do it more slowly. What you're doing when you slow yourself down, so many good things are happening in that moment. Here's the thing. When you force yourself to slow down your speech, you are grounding yourself. You are actually calming yourself. Really easy, right? When we're talking, we get excited, we talk really fast. When we talk faster, we take more shallow breaths, we get excited. We physically get excited. When you slow down, Slow down your speech. You're now choosing your words carefully. You're not raising your voice. You're not competing with the shouting. You are slowing down. You are grounding into the conversation. And you are appearing more calm and more reasonable. I don't know if you guys had parents like this, but I did. I had a hot parent and a cold parent. I had the parents who, when something went sideways and it was my fault or maybe my brother's fault, I always tried to make it my brother's fault, but it was probably usually my fault. But when something went wrong and my brother and I are like at the root of it, I had the one parent who would lose his temper. My dad would lose his temper and he'd get really angry and he'd wave his arms and he'd yell and there'd be an explosion. Then he'd go away and it'd be all done. And my brother and I wanted nothing to do with the explosions. Right? You don't want to make dad mad. You don't want to see him lose his temper. You hate seeing that. You hate getting yelled at. And then there was my mom. I don't think she ever raised her voice with us. But she got mad. But when she got mad, she got quieter and colder. And the punishment was meted out in a very rational tone of voice that was way scarier than my dad blowing up. Way, way scarier. Do you guys have parents like that? I can't be the only one raised with a hot and a cold. And what I learned was I was much more terrified of the cold than I was of the heat. Because the heat blew up and was done. He was done. He was out of the room. He was gone. And an hour later, it was all good. The cold, though, was very carefully and thoughtfully and methodically making her point. And trust me, I heard her. It's easy to ignore people when they're blowing up and they're shouting. It's easy to ignore what they're saying because you're so emotionally caught off by the tone. But when somebody is speaking to you in a very rational, calm, and level voice, it is hard to misinterpret anything they're saying as anything but calm and cool and rational. This is why, especially public speakers and persuasive speakers, and you're like, I can't believe I ever believed a word that jerk said. But if that jerk delivered his lying message to you in his very reasonable, calm voice, think about, I'm going to get totally sexist here, so forgive me, ladies, but think about the men you know who are gaslighters. The effective gaslighters don't say, no, you're totally wrong, you're completely misremembering that. They'll say that. But the really effective gaslighters say, no, sweetie, you're not remembering that the right way at all. And now they're not just making you doubt the memory, they're making you doubt your sanity. All right, so keep that in mind. You are going to slow down, keep an even voice. Now your instinct, when the person keeps trying to talk over you and you slow your pitch down and they're still coming at you, and your instinct is going to do, it's what I used to do, is, hey, I'm not done yet. Let me finish. That's what I used to do. That's what I actually used to coach too, of just, you stand your ground and you say your piece. You say, no, I'm still here. I'm taking up space. You can do that. But I've learned a more effective way of doing it. You're doing the same thing, but a more effective way of doing it is flipping the script just a teeny bit. There's a tweak to the script. So instead of saying, hey, I'm not done, or hey, let me finish, which is about me. I'm not done. Let me finish, right? That's a sentence that says, this is all about me and you need to stop. I'm going to flip the script and I'm going to say, gotcha. I will listen to you as soon as I am finished. I'll hear everything you have to say when I'm done. With that little tweak, what I'm signaling to the other person is, I hear you, and I'm going to give you space to say your piece. When you say that, you say, I will hear everything you have to say when I'm finished. When you do that, the person who's interrupting you just because they're excited, because they want to be part of the conversation, because they thought of something and they don't want to forget it, that person, rude but not mean, will go, okay. And they'll wait because they're going to get called on next. because there's part of us that still belongs in school, right? We want to raise our hand, but I want to go next, call on me. And what we basically said to them is, I'm calling on you next. I'm going to finish. I'm calling on you next. That's really what we're saying. I will hear everything you have to say when I am finished. For the ones who are more rude, like they're intentionally trying to steamroll over you, what you're saying to them is, I'm still in control of this conversation, and you can have a piece when I'm done. Same words, how they're going to hear it and read it is going to be a little bit different depending on their intent. But what you're saying is, hey, I will listen to you. You get to have your piece, whether you're a jerk or not. I will listen to you when I am finished. You are still establishing control and boundaries. And then you keep talking in your very clear, very calm, slowed down voice until you can get back up to a normal conversation because they've stopped being a jerk and interrupting. That's how I deal with people who interrupt constantly. And that is a skill I use a lot, quite frankly. Interrupting is one of those things that we do it by habit, we do it unconsciously, we do it out of excitement, and sometimes we do it because we're actively trying to shut someone down. So, a good skill to have is learning how to set that boundary to simply say, I will hear you. I will listen to you when I am finished. And now I'm going to keep going. Would love to know, especially Julie, because I know you've got the chronic interrupter, if there's any other tricks you use that seem to work, that create the pause or create the space so that you still have control of the conversation. So, and if you do and you'd like to share it in the chat, please drop it in. So, question for all of you is, are there other rude behaviors that you would like me to cover in a future training? Are there other rude communication behaviors that happen at work, things that people are doing that are annoying you? Communication mishaps, things where you feel like there's a stumbling block. Maybe somebody isn't being rude, but you're just finding yourself stuck here. Like I said, February is the month of communication. We're going to talk about all things communication. So if you have particular topics around communication or particular issues, tools, tricks, things that you want me to cover, then drop those in the comments because I will be checking them. And Sue, thank you. And I'm glad you're here tonight. It's great to see you. Drop them in the comments and I will be sure to work those in. Final note before I let you go, no training Tuesday next week. And I apologize for that, but I am traveling. I will be out of the country and I just can't quite make the time zone work. And so not next week, but we will be back on track the week after, which is 5th, 26th, I think the 27th is the Tuesday. So I will try to remember to put reminders in our group so that you know that there's no training Tuesday next week. But in the meantime, that means you've got 2 weeks to send me your ideas for what are other communication mishaps or rude behaviors you'd like tackled that I'd love to cover when we come back at the end of the month. Julie, sometimes I stop talking once they finish. I just stop talking. Okay. So you give them the floor. And then when they're done, you just come back in with, as I was saying, and you can do that. You can do that. That, especially with a chronic person that you've got, the one thing I don't love about that though, is it does let that person know they have permission to interrupt you. Now, it doesn't stop. They're still going to look like they're rude. Right? Because they're rude. Everybody knows they're being rude. And you look gracious and patient, which is fine. If you're ever in that position where you feel like, okay, but I want to establish control. I am driving this conversation. I don't need this person derailing me before I get there. Then try this technique. Try stopping them with the, hey, I'm going to listen to everything you have to say when I'm finished. Because what happens is when you back off and let them interrupt, you're basically signaling subconsciously their opinion is more important than yours. They having something to say is more important than you, and that's why we back off. It's not why we're doing it, because it's really the easier course of action, because it's not worth fighting with that person, because sometimes we can be really uncomfortable. We can be really uncomfortable asserting ourselves, right? Establishing these boundaries is hard if we haven't done it before. But, and you guys have heard me say this, when it comes to establishing boundaries, Once you start the practice, it gets easier and easier, and then it's second nature. And suddenly all those heebie-jeebies you have about feeling rude or calling people out and it feels icky, they go away. They go away, because what you're truly doing in that moment is you are protecting yourself and your boundaries. All right. I like that, Julie. Thank you. You all have a fabulous week. 2 weeks. I'll still be checking into the group and everything. It's just I'm going to be in a completely different time zone, and so the hours are weird. So I won't do a training Tuesday, but I will be checking in, answering questions, and like I said, come up with other challenging communication situations you'd like to address. We will cover those in the future, and in the meantime, you all have a fabulous Tuesday night. Talk to you later.